Live from the Talking Joe Studios, it's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe Comics podcast. Now, today we will be looking at Sssilent Missions Baroness. It was the first of the Sssilent Missions issues that came out, and we have covered it in some small way because I did an episode specifically talking to the writer of the issue, Declan Shalvey. So we didn't get too much into the spoilers because at that point I hadn't seen the whole issue. If you want to hear about Declan's background, his background with G.I. Joe, and the process that got him onto the issue and creating it, then seek out that particular episode. But in the meantime, we'll be talking in depth about the book. It is the first. We are talking a bit slightly out of order because we already covered it in some way because of that Declan Shalvey. But given that we want to be comprehensive and, really get into the weeds, and also some people had a little bit of difficulty understanding necessarily the ins and outs of the plots, I thought it would be good to properly cover it. So the issue promised us The issue promised us a standalone thriller from superstars Jöelle Jones and Declan Shalvey, where the Baroness must prevent Cobra intelligence from falling into the hands of G.I. Joe and Destro? ? Did that actually happen? We will find out as we cover it, but I will not be doing that alone. As always, I'll be joined by my co-host. It's a real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark. Listeners and viewers, how are you?
I'm doing well. We've covered pretty much all of the Sssilent Missions up to this point, with not looking at the Baroness in such big depth, but I thought it's an issue worth talking about, Tim.
Yes. This is how much I would like to talk about it.
Tim is holding up a page of notes.
I'm holding up a page of notes, and for comparison, for any long-term Talking Joe listeners, when Mark and I were talking about the first year of Devil's Due issues, I would often fill an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with notes where I would go page by page, writing things like "what" or "arg." So let's just go back a step and set some sort of expectations. I was really excited when this was announced because I think I read Jöelle Jones's first issue of Catwoman, and I think I've read the first issue of Lady Killer, and I did read Wonder Girl, which was part of Future State, which was that DC 4-issue thing set in the future that's not going to happen. And Jöelle Jones is a great artist and a good writer. And it's fun to have a female creator on a female character for G.I. Joe because there aren't a lot of female characters in G.I. Joe, and there aren't as many female creators in comics as there are males, although that has changed a lot in the last 10 or 15 years. And here's someone who hasn't worked on G.I. Joe. And we've established from some previous Sssilent Missions comics that someone who hasn't worked on G.I. Joe before and maybe doesn't really know G.I. Joe, I'm thinking Danny on Jinx can still pull off a really neat G.I. Joe story. And in that case, sort of similarly, here was a creator who was teaming up with a writer who was ready to tell a G.I. Joe story. Danny didn't know G.I. Joe and wanted a co-creator. And here we have Declan Shalvey, writing this comic for Jöelle Jones to draw. So I was very excited. Now that I've read the comic, I'm not excited. and I'm sorry, my two broad reactions are many things about this comic book don't work, and I'll try and sort of be like chipper and more academic if we do like a page by page breakdown of it, rather than I think some of our Devil's Due episodes I was just sort of like frustrated and I sounded just really impatient. Like, I don't like this and I don't like this and I don't understand this. And my other reaction is I don't think this was the one to start with. So in terms of like rolling out a 5-week event where you're asking regular customers, regular readers to shell out a lot of extra money, and you're maybe pulling in, Lap Store non-G.I. Joe readers, of these 5 characters, like you wouldn't lead with the Crimson Guard because that's not a specific character, and that's, very few people's favorite G.I. Joe design. And a lot of people, the Baroness is their favorite character. And sometimes it's just because they're an artist and that's a fun character to draw, or they're a casual fan and that's a memorable character, her voice in the cartoon or her costume, or her sort of general, badassedness. But I think this comic was, in the release order of these 5 weeks, was a mistake and a turnoff because it's hard to follow. And I wonder if there's any actual or sort of noticeable to Skybound drop off from week 1 to 2, if people read this first one and thought, because this is an experiment. And, the way that comics work, when anyone is bragging about a sellout, it's a publisher talking about comics selling out at the distributor, which is very different than bookstores, where if a book sells out, it's sold out at all the stores. And so it would be hard, maybe it'd be hard to know if, people came to stores. You'd have to ask a bunch of comic book stores, like, oh, how were sales on the Baroness one versus weeks 2 or 3? And I have wondered if sell-through at comic book stores declined because this first one was, this is the word, folks, confusing. Mark.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it makes sense to start with this one as out of the collection of the 5 characters. Baroness feels like the A-lister, the star. So that kind of ordering makes a bit of sense from that. But yeah, in terms of the enjoyment or the experience, I don't know that they'd necessarily intentionally choose to go with one over another on that basis. It's a tricky one, isn't it? But it is a bit of pot luck when you're sort of dealing with stories like this, that some will be some of the creators will be slightly more well known than others. Some of the stories will be more enjoyable than others, and those things aren't necessarily how much you enjoy a story at the end of it versus your expectations going in aren't always completely aligned. I think I was probably from this month somewhat surprised about my ordering in terms of the enjoyment that I've had from these. I think the Crimson Guard seems to be the clear winner here. I think that's the one that personally I enjoyed the most, but also hearing other people's reactions, it seems to have been a winner. And who would have guessed that? But there we are.
Yeah. I also want to just take a half step back and say that when you and I first talked about the Baroness issue a few weeks ago, I had read the Skybound preview, which is sent to stores and the press, and it's a PDF of the whole comic, usually minus the table of contents, right? And it's pretty heavily watermarked. It's got like the Skybound logo on every page, and you're not allowed to share it, and you're not allowed to put it online. And I really don't like reading comics on screens. That's any screen: phone, tablet, computer, laptop. If I'm on the subway and I'm reading, I'm holding a book or a comic. And if I'm reading a book or a comic at home, I'm holding a book or a comic. And my brain just doesn't take in. I just haven't sort of trained myself or ever gotten used to reading a lot of comics. Like I can read a 3-panel Garfield strip on a screen, and I can look at the first 3 pages like a preview, an excerpt for some comics on my computer. But to actually read a whole, graphic novel or single issue on a screen, my brain, my eyes, they just sort of don't all take it in. I find it a little hard to sort of keep track of everything. And this has to do with sort of how I think about left page and right page and top and bottom and beginning and end, am I near the front? Am I near the back? it's like a physical sort of reaction. It's like when you play chess, it's really fun to pick up a piece and move it and then look at your opponent in the eye. And that's a very different experience if you're playing chess on a computer with someone far away or against the computer and you're just moving like a little icon. Although that's better than nothing. And so I have wondered, well, maybe when I read the Baroness, that PDF, I wasn't giving it a fair shake. So I've sort of several weeks later, I've sort of tried to forget it and come to this comic book with a fresh approach, as if reading it for the first time. And it's confusing.
Interestingly, I was reading Void Rivals, one of the most recent issues of that, the other day. And as a physical comic, because I often have a little bit of a lag between seeing it as a PDF versus getting the physical comic in person. And actually, I enjoyed the physical printed comic quite a lot more. I think possibly with the vibrancy of the colors on those Andre Brassin issues, that I think as an illuminated image on a computer screen on a monitor versus a printed version of it, I think maybe slightly different experience. So I think we can kind of sometimes experience these things a little bit differently. So this issue was brought to us by the team of writer Jöelle Jones and Declan Shalvey. How is it credited on the inside?
On the inside?
It is Declan Shalvey is the writer and Jöelle Jones is the artist.
But she gets top billing.
Yeah. So she was who Skybound sought out first, and I think Declan was a suggestion from Jöelle to help her with the scripting. And Mike Spicer is the colorist. And then we've got all of the supporting people: Gillian Crabb, publication design; Caitlin Chappell, assistant editor; Alex Antone, editor; and Diana Davis, creative consultant. So let's get into the covers next. I think is what we normally do.
Why are there so many covers of Baroness?
Typical Skybound, putting Baroness on the cover. Typical.
Let's be fair. This would have been the comic to load up on. She can be in her Arctic uniform. She can be in an over-designed, like Jamie Tyndall, sexy version of her traditional costume. She can be like in an airplane over the Eiffel Tower, like in the future. It doesn't have to do anything to do with this issue. This would be the comic to just load up on Baroness variants and retailer variants. Okay. Cover A is by Jöelle Jones, both drawn and colored. It is the Baroness sitting in a theater audience, a bunch of chairs, folding red chairs. No one else is there, so it's an empty theater. There are a bunch of bullet casings by her feet. She's got her legs crossed and her hand is up on one of the seats next to her, and leaning against her leg is her sniper rifle. And she's not relaxed. She looks like she's sort of half relaxed, but half at the ready. There's a little bit of tension, right? And there's some blood splatter on these chairs. Dramatically, there is a spotlight on the Baroness and several of these chairs around her. And so there's sort of two reds here. There's the bright red of the chairs, and then the sort of the much, much darker red around them where the chairs kind of disappear. The Baroness is sitting on the armrest. She's not sitting in the chair. She's sitting between the chairs. And you can't really see it because of how her legs are drawn. But in terms of the like actual sort of space of the chair, and like I've sat like that, you sort of like you're waiting for someone, or you want to be a little bit higher because when you sit in a chair in a theater, you like sink down. And I think that just adds to the idea that she's not fully relaxed. She's still sort of tense and ready maybe to, jump up and spring into action. I think this is a really interesting cover, and I think I'm a little disappointed because considering how exciting a silent G.I. Joe comic may promise to be. And, think of the other covers for Silent Missions this year and last year. The characters tend to be in the middle of something. And this is after the Baroness has done something, which just as a sentence, as logic, is totally okay. But in terms of being on a rack and like asking a question and tantalizing me, like, come pick me up, Tim. There's an exciting Baroness adventure here. This doesn't really have that. So I like the idea of it. I like the drawing. I don't think it's a very exciting cover. And I think I wanted an exciting cover, particularly considering it was the first week of this event. Compare this to the Crimson Guardsman, who's both defending Cobra Commander and also surrounded, or Copperhead, who's, in this exciting chase with another character in the background. That one, maybe there's actually too much going on, but you can't fault that one for being exciting. Cover B?
Well, the cover C is the black and white version of that same illustration. And
yes, a drawn traditionally. That's neat. Mark has put on screen a picture of the actual inked artwork
from Jöelle's Instagram page. It is a proper paper ink on an artboard, which is nice to see. Yeah,
that's neat. So C cover was the 1:10 ratio variance, and then jumping back to regular cover B, which your store could order without any hoops to jump through. Jorge Fornes draws and colors Baroness, once again sitting down, once again legs crossed, once again with her rifle leaning against her, once again in a red seat. This time, no spotlight, not in a theater. She's in a, let's say, computer room, like render farm, headquarters, like metal floor, like generic tech stuff behind her. She's looking straight at us. And the chair is Cobra logo shaped, which is fun. Because these two covers are so similar, I think there's another like subtle disappointment about this comic book that, just as I don't want 2 issues in a row of a comic book to have really similar covers, that's like composition or colors, because on the rack, if they're next to each other, people don't see them as different things. I really want, if you're going to do a variant cover, it's not just about a different artist. It's about having a different approach. And I wish someone had said to one of these 2 artists, no, maybe she should be running or, like rappelling down a building or in a helicopter or something. But it's a neat drawing. And then cover D is the 1:25 variant. It is that same image, and now she is in the shape of the letter C. She's in color. All of her background has become gray tones, and you get all 5 of the 1:25 variants, and you put them together. Each one is a letter. It spells Cobra, and in each one, it's the Jorge Fornes character art in color with their background turned into gray tones. And these are foil, right, Mark?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Mark, were there any retailer variants?
Yeah, we had 2 for this one, which is one more than I think all of the other ones in this series. It's I think most of the 5 issues have just had one variant, which is the Peter Smith cover, which I believe is mainly available from him direct, but it might be that there's some other retailers also distributing this. So it's a sort of similar theme across the patch for all 5 covers. So she is the Baroness. She's holding a rifle, and it's against a sort of generic-y kind of tech background, metal screens, lights going beep, boop, beep, that kind of thing. And looks like Peter Smith might have also started this one on a analog piece of paper to begin, or at least that's how he did the pencils, the finished pencils and inks, which is what is on the screen at the moment. Then there was one more cover, which was from Eastside Comics, and that was by David Diaz of the Baroness in what they're calling her Snow Bunny outfit. So it is the Baroness in a white costume with a red Cobra sigil on her chest and with a white snow coat with the hood taken up over her head with that sort of fur or faux fur kind of lining framing her head. So it's a kind of outfit that we've seen a couple of times recently and also previously in the IDW run. It was a kind of a look that had been depicted there by, I think, Mike Mayhew and John Royal. And the artist David Diaz did share a video with showing a process for drawing this, which was quite fun to see. It looks like, a mix of analog, traditional, and potentially a little bit more of modern approaches to illustration. So he started by drawing a traditional black suited Baroness before then converting the image to a white suited Baroness. So the process for creating that look documented and shared on his social medias. So that is the covers. Shall we get into?
Yeah.
We'll get into the inside with a plot breakdown. And as always, when we go into these plot breakdowns, we're expecting you to have read them and digested the contents and not to be afraid of finding out spoilers. So there is a warning.
Watch out! There's spoilers ahead! Turn back before it's too late!
So here we go with an explainer of what happens in this story.
Plot breakdown.
Cobra Commander assigns a mission to the Baroness, but also assigns the same mission to Destro. The mission gives details of a guy that they need to assassinate and retrieve intel from. At the Palais Garnier Opera House, Baroness is in a sniping position in the rafters. She finds her target, but she also spots Destro in the audience. Being mischievous, she takes a shot at Destro's metallic head, which causes panic in the theatre. Destro and Baroness then fight it out over who gets to take out the target. The Baroness gets shut out, but finds and murders the target's wife. She finds hidden intel in her cleavage. The target had slipped the device onto her so that she could get away with it while he distracted the assassin. Later, in an abandoned warehouse, Destro is looking at a photo on his phone of the man that has been killed and is frustrated that he did not find the intel himself. He then finds a paper heart with coordinates for how to find the Baroness. Destro joins the Baroness at the Hotel Plaza Athene. She shows the retrieved intel on this blue card and she gives Destro the bill for her meal. And I had to make a bit of a meal to actually piece all of that plot together, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next few minutes.
This is not to sound snide. That was a good summary, and I did not get some of those points the first or second time that I read this comic. So yeah. Okay, my overall reaction, Mark, is one of disappointment because this was such an exciting concept, right? Cool character, my favorite comic. This really fun formalistic hook, no words, no dialogue, no sound effects, no narration captions, and by two creators who I pay some attention to. I really like how Declan Shalvey draws. Time After Time, that Image series which he co-writes. Is great. I've already talked about Jones's work. and I have a really hard time following this comic. And I'm actually going to jump to page 18 because I have a problem. Because page 18, a small thing on page 18 represents what I find not working about this whole issue. And I have a lack of clarity on just about every page. So page 18 is the third from the last one. It's the one where we see a warehouse, and then we see Destro in a warehouse, and then we see a close-up of a phone, and he crushes a phone, and then we see Destro looking at something, and then we see this red paper heart. And the red paper heart on the bottom of the page, it kind of looks like it's in its own panel, but now I'm realizing it's on a table. But in the previous 2 panels earlier, when Destro's walking toward that shaft of light, holding a phone, there is no table. And if it's on a table and it's like another panel and the red paper heart is like on the ground, like, why not? That second panel where Destro's turned away from us and he's walking towards a shaft of light, can you imagine if there was a tiny red dot like on the ground in front of him, or if there was a table there, right? There's what this issue is missing is visual connective tissue. That many props and character motivations are shown once. Props are shown once or twice. They are they pop up without being properly established, or they pop up and then they disappear, and so you don't get closure on them. And then in the case of 1 or 2 of them, they pop up again, but they're very small or indirect, and so it's not clear that it's the same prop. And then in the case of character acting and motivations, I'm unclear on most of the character motivation and acting here. And the only reason why I know what these coordinates might mean is because I've seen movies or like episodes of G.I. Joe, like The Viper is coming, right? Where like the phone rings and Barbecue picks it up and someone says a bunch of numbers, and the Joes are like, well, let's see what that longitude and latitude is. It happens to be a Cobra base, right? We've absorbed from popular entertainment that a bunch of numbers like this, and I see the N and I see the E, I guess that's north and east. That must be geographic coordinates, right? But like, I don't do geolocating or like geocaching. I don't do that as an activity. So it's actually a big leap from the bottom of this page to the next page where it's like, of course, Paris, right? It's like, So we can just jump back to page 1 now. So back to you, Mark.
Yeah, let's. I think it'll be good to sort of do a page turn on this one, and I think it will prompt a lot of the discussion. But I think so that we don't come off as moaning minis, let's do a quick say something nice, perhaps, on this one.
Well, I done read a heck a lot of comics. Some of them are great, the team are all on it, but some are a bit cack. They really are whack. Before the nitpicks come out, I'll giving it my bestest, and nothing's gonna stop me from trying to be positive. So I'll pause my scorn to put up 2 thumbs and turn my frown upside down. Take advice, it cannot wait. Say something nice. I'll say something nice.
So I think my say something nice is that it's clear that a lot of time and has been taken in the look of this book, and it does for the most part look really nice. I think that my take on it is that the illustration is very lush. There's a lot of dynamism in the storytelling, even on the kind of page that I've got up on the screen at the moment. Baroness is looking great in her costume. They've got a mix of long shots, close-ups, silhouettes here. I think Alex Antone describes the Baroness as never as looking as good as she has in this issue, and I'm not sure if I'd go to that extent, but it looks generally great, and I think it's very close to being a great issue overall. But I think the storytelling and the clarity, I think, is the thing that lets it down. But the look of the book and a lot of the things around it, actually, I think are quite good. It's just the I think the frustrations from some of the clarity of the storytelling frustrate the reader, I think, a little bit.
My say something nice is I love the grand international scope of this issue, that if you do this sort of sentence plot or like list of bullet points, Cobra Commander, Destro, Baroness, Opera, Paris, Cobra headquarters, assassination, there's a brief moment of taking a prisoner, like a kidnapping hostage moment, lovers quarrel, and then the sort of the joke at the end where she gives him the bill, which was not super clear to me, but it's like, I don't like the cake, but I like flour, and I like cocoa powder, and I like eggs, and I like milk, and all the things that go in the cake, and I appreciate that someone made a cake, even if I don't want the cake.
So, page 1 of the story, we have got Cobra Commander. We have an establishing shot of his castle, which isn't necessarily something that we're used to. But we've said before, new Cobra locations. Is it? We can be, we can be okay with that. Is it
a castle? It just looks like a headquarters.
Okay, a headquarters. It's sort of not necessarily. It's a sort of sci-fi headquarters in the shape of a letter L.
It feels it's not shaped like any Cobra motif, but it feels like it could belong in the animated universe. It's like a tech base.
It feels a little bit more like something that might live in the Star Wars universe as well. And I've seen people sort of refer to it as like his castle on Mustafar, which is reinforced by the fact that we've got Cobra Commander as seen from behind, marching forward with this billowing cloak, sort of echoing what we think of when we think of Darth Vader as well.
Okay, so tiny party foul. In panel 4, we see a bunch of monitors, and it's various Cobra agents, and the art and colors have been filtered so that it looks like they're, like on screens. They're not like actual people there. And Zarana, on one of those little screens, is a bit of Andrea Milana artwork from the Energon universe. And Mark, did you point out another one of these that's from the other continuity? I
think Tomax and Zaymot are also from an Energon universe cover from the Destro miniseries, I think. And Zartan is, I believe, from the IDW universe version of Zartan as well. So we're seeing a combination of some different G.I. Joe universes for these characters.
So if this was a Marvel comic and like Doctor Doom was looking at a bunch of computer screens, and regular Marvel Universe 616, Doctor Doom, is looking at a bunch of computer screens, and half of them had regular Marvel Universe characters, but one of them had like Ultimate Wolverine, and one of them had animated Cyclops from like the cartoon. That would be distracting. And this is not that. This doesn't jump out as much because Energon Universe Zarana looks just like Real American Hero Zarana, but in my mind, I'm tracking all these different drawings and artists, and this is a very small crossing over of continuity that is distracting. And I just wish it was a quote regular Zorana and a regular Tomax and Xamot. I have two other problems with this page. One, there's no chair in the big panel where Cobra Commander is walking towards the computer. And then he's sitting in a chair. And you could say, well, maybe his like legs are in front of it in that big panel. Maybe. And it's not a big deal, right? Like, Tim, who cares? It's like he's drawn so well that like the floor pattern, that's a cool like Photoshop effect. Like him leaning forward with his fingers laced in the final panel. Yes. But what this represents to me is that in the continuity of the issue, Jöelle Jones is not tracking things, is not sort of keeping things there, remembering to show something and then show it again. It's not like obviously there was just a chair there and we can't see it, I guess. And then secondly, there's this final panel that says assign. And I think the computer is asking Cobra Commander this. And it's not that there's a word, right? Silent Interlude in 1984 has two panels, or, it's like, what's the percentage? Like Destro's looking at his own computer and it's like percentage that someone can insert with the wind onto the castle, like 0%. Like that's in Hama's original, right? The problem I have here is that I don't know sort of where that word is. Is it on one of those monitors? Like, yes, logically, of course. And he's looking sort of straight. So I don't think it's like down on the keyboard or like over his shoulder. But again, it's like the chair. I feel like Jöelle Jones is not fully keeping me in agreement with everything that's important in this space. And
you could have potentially even the reflection of that assign in his mirrored mask, which is what happens on the next page.
Yeah.
I was talking about the Star Wars-ness of it, and I just also noticed that
the actual
on panel one,
the actual Death Star lighting on the walls.
You've got the Death Star lighting on the walls, yeah.
I'm okay with that. I think that's fun. Like if this was if everything else about the comic was an A+, this I would pick on. I'd say like, make it more neutral or make it more Cobra motifed or based it on some G.I. Joe movie or comic. Like this really does look like the Death Star, but that's okay. This first page gives me pause, and it's going to be a problem for me on page 2 and on page 3, 4, 5. The actual division of this page into panels, right? We've got 3 small inset panels that are sort of sitting on the artwork of 3 other larger panels. And they've all got borders, right? It's pretty clear what's a panel. And I know that like my preference for traditional page layouts, like, I don't know, issue 21 from 1984, where it's like rectangles with white gutters between them, and they're generally the same size as each other. I know that that's not the style of the day, right? Comics are much flashier now. But all of the black on this page, his cape, the Death Star sort of interior structures, all the sort of noise on the screens, the chair, what's behind him in the panel where he's got his fingers laced. All the panels start to like kind of connect into one just like montage, just like one tableau. And I know how to read this page. I know what the panel order is. And it is like 85, 90% clear that like each panel has its own gutter and ending, right? But if you just look at this panel for a moment, it all kind of like blends together. And this is going to happen again in some other pages. And so for like all of these reasons, right? It's like, oh, the cover and like this first page, where's the chair? And like, who's saying a sign? And like, this first page is not off to a great start for me. So
next up, we have a limo arriving outside of a building, and a sort of an avatar of the Baroness next to a blue rectangle with a white star in it, which we might think has got something to do with G.I. Joe. It's not completely clear. I think in the back of the book, we've got some white some layouts, which helps us, I think, realize. There we go. Tim's holding it up. Helps us realize that potentially that blue and white is meant to be the G.I. Joe logo, because in the layouts it is that movie style eagle and star. So I think that is kind of meant to illustrate that it's something G.I. Joe-y. And then there's an image of a guy who looks incredibly like Powers Booth, the actor off of Deadwood and other things. A sort of a bit of a TV baddie of types. I think was he in 24 as well? Maybe, I want to say
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay,
isn't he like the head conspiracy guy when they're like the cabal that's actually running the world? I never watch it.
So we got a guy there. So I think as this issue goes on, we're meant to kind of connect the dots that this guy is her target that she's going after, and the blue background and a white star actually might represent some intel that this guy has got. It's tenuous, but I think you have to do a little bit of mental gymnastics to figure it out. But that's kind of the through line, which is less than clear in the story. But once you realize that she needs to retrieve an envelope, a blue envelope with a white star on it, then the story becomes a little bit clearer.
Okay. So here's another page where I can figure it out, but it takes me some work. Like, oh, is the Baroness at this fancy like opera house? Is she in the limo? Like, why is that the establishing shot? Like, oh, well, if it's a film, the word would be cross-cutting. But like, isn't Cobra Commander still unspooling the like mission for me? Okay, so I don't know why his like avatar of Cobra Commander, I don't know why his avatar of Baroness is like a sexy pose of her. I'm serious though, like standing there.
It's the way she's drawn. She can't help it.
Okay.
That was a Roger Rabbit quote.
Okay. All right.
Reference.
Let me take a half step back. The guy who looks like Powers Booth, I'm just going to call him the target for the rest of the episode. I think this is a slightly confusing image for him. I feel like it should either be sort of more clearly like an intelligence photo, like, when like someone's getting out of a car or they're like talking with someone and they slightly turn and look over and then click, 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 someone far away is taking a photo of them. It should either be like that or it should be his ID photo from his passport. Like this is like an actor headshot or like a family sort of, this is like a corporate headshot, which I guess they could have pulled from LinkedIn. Okay. So I feel like the Baroness should be a headshot and the target should be a headshot or like a spy photo from across the street. And, the very beginning of our episode of Talking Joe, Mark, has a little snippet of video from the 1984 Commodore 64 G.I. Joe video game. And there's that player select screen where you've got a grid of like 12 Joes and then like 12 Cobras. And you like pick one and it's like head and shoulders, head and shoulders. Okay, so then I'm imagining that Jöelle Jones was going to draw the movie logo. And then someone at Skybound said, no, we can't draw the movie logo. That half belongs to Paramount. So come up with something else or just do the star. So I see this blue, the first time I read this comic, I see this blue rectangle and I think, oh, is that a card? Mark, you said envelope. It never occurs to me that this is an envelope. I thought it was like a little tech thing, like a credit card with a chip or something, or the way that the rest of this page has like a circle and some fingerprints and like another circle that looks like someone's back in Tron or like a DVD. It's just like general computer tech stuff, like player selection stuff, agent selection stuff. That blue rectangle with the white square both jumped out at me as nothing important and also a G.I. Joe thing. And here's my idea for this page. If Cobra Commander is picking the Baroness for this mission, she gets a green check. And if the point is to take out the target, he gets a red X or a red target next to him or over him. And then this computer stuff that's just floating behind Cobra Commander's head, it starts to be visually confusing because I just wanted to be sitting in that chair, like looking at a monitor. And I know that's awfully literal, but I think a story like this needs the nuts and bolts of literal.
Yeah. And if sort of looking at that blue background with the white star, it looks very G.I. Joey, but what's the significance is definitely not clear. And it kind of maybe needs like some sort of connectivity to the target and like a little message that says secure intel or something, along those lines.
Okay, it can't be words. So there should be like 3 spy photos of him holding it and putting it into a suitcase, or him holding it and holding a suitcase and then him getting into a car, or like
Something.
or like someone losing it. Like this page is not visual storytelling. It's just a tableau. These images don't connect to each other. And then Baroness gets reflected in Cobra Commander's mask. That's good. All right, so
Turning over, so we get
3.
the big reveal. It's a glamour shot, very filmic. The Baroness is arriving at this location, the Palais Garnier Opera House. So there's the shot from the comic. There's what the actual location looks like. And so she's getting out of a limo in a sort of, slinky sort of evening gown. She's carrying a violin case, which, is quite a small case. You wouldn't be able to get very much in there before walking up some stairs on into the interior. And she's got a kind of fancy mask, like I don't know, there's probably a name for it, but like, a masquerade kind of mask that she can hold up.
So we're on page 3. Panels 1 and 3 show a fancy building, and the staircase that she goes up in panel 3, I don't see that staircase in panel 1. It's not the same staircase because it's got a really grand railing. And
yeah, I think this is probably on the interior.
Okay.
She's gone through.
But also the establishing shot of this opera house am I the only one who finds sort of a disconnect between what we see of it on the previous page and what we see of it here? I got the sense that it was like 2 different buildings in the same European city. And I get it. It's got arches and it's got columns. But, on page 2, it looks shorter, and I see a limo in both, so I appreciate that. But okay, I get the general sense. She's in disguise. I'm assuming she has a weapon, although it's not shown. And she goes inside.
So she goes inside. She's looks out, I guess, onto the interior of the opera house at this point. And then the next scene is a corridor. She's dropped her mask. She's taking off her shoes, and is having a fight with these 2 guys at the end of a corridor, taking them down. I guess security guys who are in charge of this particular door for whatever reason.
I don't have anything to add. I thought this page was okay. Okay, so we come to page 5, and we see in a front row Destro sitting by himself, empty seats on either side of him, and he's frowning, and he's leaning his his head against his fist, like he's waiting. And then we have sort of a repeat of page 2, where it is the same artwork of Cobra Commander, the same sort of tech spread of like mysterious moon and CD and fingerprints and the same blue rectangle with a white star. And I still don't know what this is because the visual storytelling of this comic have not shown me. And then the same image, sort of character select image of the target. And this is where I got really confused because I see that Destro is in the same place as the Baroness. Good context. People behind him have masquerade masks and he's dressed up fancy. So I wasn't like, is Destro at a separate opera house? No. I was like, Destro's there. And maybe Baroness even sees him. And then I thought...
Just occurs to me that as well that I thought he would stick out like a sore thumb in his mask, but it is a masked ball after all. So there, I guess, is some logic as to why maybe he isn't sticking out quite as much, although, yeah. Although it's quite a mask.
I just want to go back to all this like tech stuff that Cobra Commander has pulled up. Like the circle and then the CD thing and then the thumbprints. Like that's like almost that's a sixth of the page. That's a lot of real estate. That's not used twice. Okay. But then I got excited because there's a very cool drawing of Destro in his costume.
Oh.
We're still on page 5. And
I thought you were about to get excited by the next page. Sorry.
No, I don't like the next page actually. And Destro's got a very cool weapon. And it's sort of the like classified version, right? Because there's like ribbing and padding on his shoulders and like his elbow, which is totally fine. You know, like this is the Real American Hero continuity, but also these issues are all take or leave, whatever continuity you want. But so I'm distracted by I still don't have clarity on sort of what the blue thing is and who the guy is, the target, but also why this page is a copy and paste of a previous page. Like, wouldn't Cobra Commander have moved? And I don't mean that to be snide. Like, you know, someone can sit at the computer and just like be thinking for 2 minutes and they like click through one agent or another. But in comics, if Cobra Commander, like, why isn't he acting? Why doesn't he like lean back and, you know, put his fingers on his chin or like fold his fingers across each other again, or like press a different button and the button can have a color or something. This page feels like, you know, someone ran out of time and they needed to keep the page really simple. And I don't think that's the solution for this page.
Yeah. And I guess the conclusion that we're meant to draw from this particular page is that Cobra Commander has also assigned this same mission to Destro.
Now, when I first read this, I thought...
We still on the same page? Or
yeah, go back to 5. When I first read this, okay. I thought, okay, Baroness has the mission, Destro's chasing her, and Cobra Commander is now aware of it. But it didn't occur to me that Cobra Commander had assigned him because, well, there isn't that word, assign, ? And there's no sense of like Cobra Commander like pressing a down key or a right key or like a little joystick, like select, click this one. All right, page 6. Tell us about this very exciting page, Mark, and why you like
it. So Baroness has got past these 2 guards. Presumably they were guarding the access to the rafters, and so she has got herself up onto an elevated part of the opera house.
A catwalk.
A catwalk, yeah.
And there's like ropes and we don't see sandbags.
Lighting.
Yeah.
You'd expect to see some sandbags. So she's put down her case. She's taken off her evening gown, which is hung over one of these railings. There's some silhouettes of her getting into her kit, and it's a reveal of a half-page full figure reveal of Baroness in her classic iconic costume, nicely drawn, nicely lit. So it's a bit of a kind of meant to be a wow flash reveal kind of moment, I think, of here's the Baroness, here she is in the costume
Okay.
that you
Here's
will love, drawn by a fancy artist.
Yes. So it's a fun page turn. You're like, oh, awesome. One of my favorite characters in their full costume. And it's a reveal, and they're not like obstructed. They're not behind a barrel or like really small on the page coming through a doorway. It's a half page splash. But Mark, what is she doing in that half page? In terms of script or plot, seriously, what is she doing? What is the plot point here?
She's looking at us, the audience, the reader, and she's holding onto a rope.
Why?
Which then doesn't lead to anything in particular.
Right.
As far as we can tell.
There's no reason why. Because she doesn't like pull the rope and then like the curtain comes up, or like cut the rope, and then like a sandbag comes down. She doesn't like climb up the rope or ride the rope down to a lower. She's just holding it because there's no reason why she's holding it. And so the reason why she's holding it is so that she's not just standing there for us to enjoy her standing there. And so she's just standing there for us to enjoy her standing there. And this is where what this page really needs is a smaller reveal of her in her awesome costume in all of its glory, but also her, I guess on the next page, she does spend 2 panels assembling her gun. So I take that back. I'm sorry. I missed that earlier when I was saying this would be clearer. Because she's just, and it's not an exploitation pose. She's not like sticking her butt out. This isn't like Psylocke taking a shower in like issue 7 of X-Men or whatever, drawn by Jim Lee. And it's like, I don't know why Psylocke had, it's like anyone could have taken a shower, right? And but you know what this page sort of reminds me of? This is like a Greg Land page where someone is drawn in a like sexy way that reminds me of like a photo of a model that's been redrawn for a comic, and there is no like story or plot points, and it's sort of like a disconnected piece of art that looks kind of like a splash page or a cover. And I know it's not as exciting or tense as a cover, but again, there is no story point here, except to say that, well, now she's in her costume, but she wouldn't like stop and show off for no one because we're not really there. Now I'm in my costume, everyone. But again, I apologize. On the next page, she does assemble her rifle. And she's got into her costume here, but where has her costume come from? Because presumably it would have had to have come from the violin case, which is a small case, and it's got a big thing in it. I've decided that I'm going to allow because, you know, the Joes, it's like, you know, there's a Joe and a Cobra who've got like missile launchers on them, and I don't want to worry about. Like, well, they wouldn't fit in a seat or a chair because they're like missiles are in the way. Or like, could Rock and Roll version 2 or version 2 really hold those 2 Gatling guns? It's too heavy. Like,
or just Zartan taking off a disguise and
yeah. Or I'm okay with that. It's like, I'll just pretend her case was a little bigger, or it's okay. That is not a nuts and bolts.
I will
thing
say. One thing about her footwear, though, is that she does have 3 changes of footwear, or 3. So she arrives out of the limo in some open-toed heels with a chunky heel. Later on in the hall, just as she's approaching those guys protecting the door, she's in a different pair of heels. These look to be more sort of purple than black.
And they're not
pointy
open
heel, and they're not open toe, and then on this page she has changed into a big pair of chunky boots. So I think -1 point for inconsistency on the shoes.
Yeah. All right. So
next up,
so page 7, and I really like this page for one reason, and then I don't like this page for half a reason. This is a page of some good visual storytelling and continuity where she assembles her rifle, she sets it up, she looks through the scope, although it does feel a little bit like in panel 1, 2, 3, 4, she's looking at us and not through the scope, but okay. She looks through the scope and we see what she sees through the scope, which is the target and let's say the target's date and the target is in a box, the like special seats up on the side. And then we also see Destro through her scope. And then it's too subtle for me, but I think she's frowning in the final panel. Like, oh, what's he doing here?
What's he doing?
And I'd like more there. And one way to do that would be to have one more panel on this page where after we see the panel, the POV scope of the target and the target's date, there's a panel of her now looking off to the right. It's like, oh, and we could say, oh, she sees something else. What does she see? And then we see that she sees Destro. But okay. But in front of Destro is a railing because he's in the front row of a balcony. And 2 pages back, there was no railing in front of Destro. And again, it's like, you know, if a character has like torn clothes in a fight, I'm not too worried that their torn clothes don't like perfectly match from, you know, page 10 of a comic to like page 15. And, you know, if Mark like bringing up the changing footwear seems like nitpicking, that and this thing about the railing to me represents not paying attention to important details. And if you're drawing this complex story and you're not tracking small details, that to me like represents also not tracking medium and big details.
And speaking of which, she's got her gun that she assembles from the little violin case. It feels like it's too small a case, but there we go. But there is a difference panel to panel between the type of gun that she seems to have. So as she's assembling it, it seems to be quite a modern assault rifle type rifle with a sight, one of these sort of like, fancy Call of Duty digital sights, and then move to the next panel. And it seems to now be a sniper rifle type gun that there is a little bit of inconsistency in terms of the reference being used and the angle being used. And while we're talking about consistency of weaponry, a couple of pages on from that, she does in one panel switch to having a shotgun in the panel at the top of page, what would this be, page 10, as she progresses back into a corridor. And it's a small panel, but if you zoom up close, it is definitely a shotgun and not the same weapon that she had assembled earlier.
When I read Rob Liefeld's Snake Eyes Dead Game, I was distracted because his swords and his like leg straps and his like backpack would change from panel to panel or from page to page. And I thought, you know, there's not so much going on here. Like Liefeld really needs to keep track of this stuff. Otherwise the audience might notice and then be distracted. And when I was reading this and some of the stuff was changing, I thought of Rob Liefeld's Snake Eyes Dead Game, which is just in this one category, not a favorable comparison.
So next, she's seen Destro in the audience and is scowling, and then
all right. Now we're on page 8,
and we switch to Destro's point of view. He's looking up and noticing the target in the box, and then his head moves forward, and I think he is looking at the stage. There's the stage, there's lights, there's maybe someone on the stage. It's a little bit confusing as to how to interpret the significance of that particular panel.
Yeah.
No. And then
is it a singer, a dancer in panel 4? I don't know what's under the spotlight on the stage.
Yeah. And then we switch to Baroness up in the rafters with her sniper, and she blows a kiss, but I don't know that it's established that Destro knows that she's there, so it feels a little bit performative, perhaps. And then that is followed up with a reaction shot as a bullet bounces off of Destro's head, presumably shot by the Baroness, which seems a little bit extreme, particularly, you know, if they're friendly or whatever. And I guess to the point here, we didn't talk about this yet, is when this story is meant to be set. I guess these stories are somewhat timeless. But in terms of recent, canon or continuity, Destro and the Baroness have been, independent to Cobra for quite a long time. And have been very much a couple. So it feels like perhaps this is meant to be earlier in their relationship, perhaps. So there's probably a time box window early in the ARA continuity where Destro has been introduced. He's still working for Cobra as a kind of independent contractor, and they've got a slightly flirtatious relationship, but not kind of quite coupled up. And maybe it's meant to be sort of in that era, maybe, question mark.
I'm not worried about when it takes place. I think the whole point of these silent missions, if they were all written by Hama, or even if they were like guest written by, Chuck Dixon and Paul Allore and like Josh Blaylock, and it's like, these are going to be in Hama's continuity, but it's by writers from the past, then I'd be like, okay, when do they take place? Since these are so much sort of people new to G.I. Joe or G.I. Joe outsiders, I think it's like specifically doesn't matter. It's like, it's just a little story unto itself. And if you don't like it, or if it doesn't sort of agree, then you can shunt it off to a pocket universe. I was really thrown off by the Baroness shooting Destro in the head. I think this is what you're getting at. It's like, that's such an extreme action that doesn't feel like something that could be in this sort of one-off G.I. Joe tale. It has to be when they're at their most antagonistic, or they've never met before.
And to, I guess, the point of, that's a sniper rifle shot to the head for Destro. That seems very extreme and all the rest of it. I guess in continuity, he does, he has been in situations where he has had bullets bouncing off of his dome and not being too fazed by it. So let's not worry too much about, I guess, the physics involved and the biology of a shot to the head to Destro. But from a storytelling perspective of this particular story, it also, I'm just questioning why has she chosen to shoot him in the head beyond just playing with him and being mischievous? Because she's gone to some lengths to go in quietly in disguise, slip into her costume, get into the rafters, get a position where she can, have a shot on her target, and then instead she's chosen to shoot Destro.
I think I can answer this. If Destro wasn't there, she would just shoot the target. Because Destro's there, she needs to remove him, and to do that, she needs to cause a panic. She needs to cause a stampede. So she does something loud, which is like a bullet bouncing off of someone. And then people all around them get up and panic and rush for the exits. I think it's not shown. There's just this one small panel on page 9, panel 3. And at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's like 5 or 10 or 15 people just up in the sort of balcony area where Destro is. I don't get the sense that everyone in the entire theater is getting up and running for the exits. But in terms of, to answer your question, why does she shoot him? She shoots him to throw him off and to create a commotion, a distraction. And I don't know if it'll work, but and then in the bottom panel here on page 9, he's looking, I think, up. And this is confusing. On the left side of him, sort of just past his ear, there's like a little bit there's darkness and some like fuzzy light. On the right side of him, we see the rafters and 3 lights that presumably are aiming at the stage. And I think he is in panel 4 and the rafters are panel 5, but he's like vignetting on top of it. And but it's
we're seeing in the panel what he is looking at.
Right. But it sort of just looks like we're looking up at him and he's now looking at the stage and we're seeing the rafters and the lights up behind him. And so it's like, wait, shouldn't the Baroness be up there? Oh, I think maybe it's different rafters. He's like looking around, like, where'd that come from? Looking up, looking left, looking right. Or she's already run away. So
yeah, we don't see Baroness here. And when we next see her, she's somewhere else.
I sort of get it. But in the same way that you said, it's not clear earlier that he is looking around for her, or like, why is he looking straight at the stage? Is he looking for something? It's not entirely clear here what he's looking for besides a very general "who shot me." It's like, well, does he also know it's the Baroness? Does she know she's there? Does he know where she is? Does he know where she was? Okay, so that's page 9.
And so the next page, Baroness is back down in the theatre. There's 2 security guys, bodyguards, in the hall, who spot her coming down with her shotgun. She shoots the 2 of them, and then there is one more, or probably one more, possibly one of them who gets up, who levels a handgun at her, and she knocks him down with the butt of her sniper rifle before bursting into the box where she was looking for her target. And on this last panel, as she's getting into the box room, we could see some empty seats. It's not clear if anyone's there yet.
Okay, so we're on page 10 right now, and here's a little test, right? And you just called it. So in the top panel, she's running toward us, and there are 2 guards. One has a pistol and one's reaching for a pistol. And in the second panel, she fires, and let's say she takes out both of them. And then in the third panel, there's a guy standing in a doorway. I don't know if that's the same door I just saw in panel 2 with the guy like flying in front of it. I don't know if it's that guy, or as you said, is it maybe a new guy, a third guy who came in? And this sounds like a small thing, but we should be able to tell. And, one way to do that is to give them like more different costumes or different hair. It's like one could have a mustache, and not, they're supposed to be neutral. They're just all wearing like black suits or dark blue suits. And then, as you called out on that final panel, she goes into the box where I think she's looking for the target. And I think there's 2 empty seats that I can see, and I think 2 more empty seats. And I think the point here is she sees that the box is empty and that the target and the target's date got away. And I think the camera needs to be pulled back more, or it needs to be an over-the-shoulder shot from her point of view. And we see her seeing 4 empty seats and that like front little wall of the box that then like opens up into the theater. Because seeing her come into the doorway, it's like, which doorway? What doorway?
Mm-hmm. Because I think it becomes a little bit clearer as we move to the next panel.
Okay.
And the shot is a little bit reversed. We see over the Baroness's shoulder that we're looking into the box and then into the theater, and these chairs are empty, but the target's date is still there,
and she's cowering, which is some good
word to use.
Some good body language. This is a good panel. We see that the Baroness sees the cowering date in the otherwise we now know empty box. Okay, good.
And then she looks down out of the box and sees into the theater. It looks like you can see 2 figures. They're a little bit indistinct. It's not completely clear what's going on, or who they are. And they're at the front row, where like the front row then becomes, I guess, the pit for the orchestra. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's not clear if like one or the other is running, if one or the other has stopped, if one of them is, say, Destro and one of them is, say, the target.
And then the next panel is that it looks like the back of the target, you might guess, running through some what looks like industrial piping through to a door. And it looks like as he sort of is going to go through the door, he is surprised by Destro, who's on the other side, who sort of levels a pistol in his face to his shock.
I would like to see some of this doorway in the final 2 panels. I would like to see other pipes, or like a little placard on the wall, that with like an arrow with like a little like in case of fire, go this way. Not because I need that specific detail, but because there is no background in these final two panels with, pointing the pistol. The body language on the target is great. He's surprised. He's stopped. He's leaning back because there's a pistol in his face. Destro is calm and cool, but there's a light source right behind Destro, and that, I don't know if that sort of feels like what you'd get in the sort of back hallways of the opera house. And I don't know how far the target has made it from the previous panel, because there are no background cues in this panel to say, yes, still that sort of, underground elevator utility pipe area, or like getting closer to the emergency exit, or like, some dressing rooms or something.
And then we get a big splash page. Baroness swoops in with a big kick to the face to Destro, knocking him back.
Where are they, Mark? This big splash. This is page 12. She's kicking and Destro's being kicked, and there's a bunch of lights and like sort of rafter stuff up behind Baroness. So like, did we jump back to the stage or in front of the stage? I thought we were in a hallway, like behind the stage or off to the right or the left, like towards the, emergency exits.
Yeah, I was thinking like behind the stage somewhere, like off to it. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit indistinct, but a cool kick. And then there's this interaction between the Baroness and Destro, where he takes out a knife, slashes at her face. She gives him an elbow to his head. Then from somewhere,
someone has the sniper rifle, which was not on the previous page, and Baroness did not.
There's a hint on panel 3 here that maybe that's the top of the gun.
Oh, like she's got it wrapped around her. She's got it slung over her back, but there's no strap on her. On the splash page.
It sort of looks drawn like an afterthought.
So I think,
where was the gun?
I think in panel 1, 2, 3, 4, I think she's about to get a bead on him, and he's pushing it away.
Yeah, pushing the rifle away.
And then she kicks him, and he drops the rifle. So maybe he had it, but it's a feminine hand that's holding the rifle, and a masculine hand.
Yeah, she had it, and he was grabbing it, and then she
just throws the rifle so she can kick him, and then the rifle clatters to the floor. I think it's on the floor here at the bottom of page. Can you go back to 13? Actually, no. We can say on 14. When I got to this 3-page fight scene, I wrote, "Why are they fighting?" Which is very different than, "Oh, cool, that's a cool fight they're fighting." And I know in a general sense, they're fighting because something about the target. They both want to... But see, here's where I got confused when I read this comic. I think she's been sent to kill the target. But is Destro actually there to kill the target? Or did Cobra Commander send Destro to stop Baroness because he's a master manipulator? Or to get something from the target before Destro kills the target? Or to plant something on the target before Baroness kills the target? And this just goes back to, was it pages 2 and 5, where... Because I'm not sure what the mission is, right? I see this twice. We were introduced to this blue rectangle with a white star, right? Envelope, card, ID, mega memory, board for a computer. But this is where, in this 3-page fight, we should see that blue card. Someone should have pulled it off with a guy, or Destro should suddenly have it, and then the Baroness goes for it, and then they start the fight. Or she has it for 2 panels, and he punches her, and he gets it, and then she kicks him, and then she gets it, or something. So this fight ends up being superfluous, besides just cool fight.
Yep. My take is that they've both been set the same mission, so they're in competition, and that's sort of borne out by the last page. So maybe we'll talk about it when we get there. So they're having this fight. They're having a grapple here, face to face, and then Destro gives her an almighty booting. He kicks her across the room.
He kicks her 15 feet.
It looks like it.
And then I thought, so now we're on page 15.
15.
So she's in a doorway, and I think there's some like pipe stuff to the left. So is this the same doorway where Destro stopped the guy? And again, where are we in terms of I
think it's the same
stage.
Doorway that the guy ran through.
Yeah, okay. So it is
where
the
we're
same.
seeing that piping.
Okay. So
but the
piping has like moved, and when he ran through it, we only saw one door, but now it's a double door, which is more about cropping than about like drawing sort of the incorrect door.
Yeah, it looks, the door is double door. It looks very much like the same door that he was running through earlier.
Okay.
And Destro, it looks like Destro is closing the door. He's pushing it shut, and the Baroness is sort of beating her fist, sort of trying to push it open. So she has been shut out, is my take.
This needed 2 panels. There's an idea in storyboarding for TV and film, which a teacher of mine said in college, which is 1 panel, 1 idea, which is very different than comics, where you can have many ideas in a panel. And if you were taking my comics class in my slideshow, I'd show you some examples. And I think in a wordless comic, the ideas have to be so clear, and if they're not, they need to be simple. And one way to do that is to like divide up the ideas across more panels. And I'm like 80% with you. Like, okay, I think he's closing the door and she's shut out. But imagine if between panels 2 and 3, he like booted her all the way through the doorway and then closed the door. Or if he's so strong, he's starting to close it and she's trying to stop it. And then we get this panel where he does close it and she's like, no. The drama of it, the like physical sort of force of it, is not accentuated. And I wish it were.
So she turns away from the door, I think, looking at another route out, heads into the light. And then the next panel, we see her back in the audience with the seats, and she is putting on a coat, which she has found somewhere. Maybe an audience member has abandoned it in the rush, given the gunfire. It looks a bit like possibly it could be a man's jacket.
Okay. Where did that coat come from? Like this is sort of like in an action movie, I feel like a lot of the audience is not keeping track of how many clips a character has and how many bullets are in each clip. But if you know weapons, you might track that. And if they're using like more bullets than they physically could have on their person or in their clip, you, the person who knows guns, are distracted. And you're like, well, that, now I'm taken out of it. That's unrealistic. Because one of the guards that she shot a couple pages earlier had a blue jacket, I thought, oh, maybe it's that guy. And I don't really need to see her like run by that guy unconscious or dead on the ground and stop and pull off his coat. And I don't really need to see someone panicking in the crowd 3 pages earlier when we weren't really shown that the crowd was panicking and leaving, take off their coat and abandon it. But this is a big like physical leap here. Like if it was anything else, if it was a knife, a pistol, a flashlight, right? We'd all think, wait, where did that come from? And so this is asking a question for which there isn't an answer, and it's distracting. It's like, I think it comes from that guy that she took out, but I don't know.
So yeah, my take is it's been abandoned in the seats, and she's grabbed it as she's running along. And then next page, we see her in the goat, and she's sort of getting in with a lot of the panicking crowd. She grabs this one person by the neck and then looks down into her cleavage and either puts in or takes out something. My read is that she has discovered that this is the partner of the target. She has been given the secret intel, and she has hidden it in her cleavage. And as Baroness has grabbed her, she has spotted it. It's a bit of a leap, but and then this last panel, we have her leveling a knife to her throat. And I did wonder whether possibly this lady in a pink dress was perhaps a callback to Lady Killer, which is the book that Jöelle Jones is perhaps one of her best pieces of work. So famous cover is a lady in a bright pinky dress, and I think she probably uses a knife in this book. So I wonder whether there's a bit of a thing going on.
But it's a different dress, and she's not wearing pearls. So okay.
That was just a maybe.
Okay, I think it just needs to be a bright color, the dress, so that it can stand out in the crowd.
Stand out, yeah.
And it's not going to be red, because then we might think it's Cobra, and it's not going to be blue, because then it would like be too close to the blue card, the envelope. So that, it's not going to be yellow, because you wouldn't wear a yellow evening gown to the opera. So there's not a lot of choices. I think as a meta comparison to Lady Killer, it works. I don't think it's actually a reference. So just in my mind, I want to go back. There were the 2 pages. Was it 8? Yeah, it was like 8 and 7 and 8, or 8 and 9. When we see the target and his date in their box, it would have been so great if the target was holding the blue card, like holding it nervously, or pulled it out of his pocket and like looked out into the crowd, not at the Baroness or Destro, and then like maybe also looked at his date, or like put his hand on his date's arm. I need a little setup. Like, it can be a surprise that the date has the until it has the blue card in her cleavage. That's a fun reveal if that's actually the case. It's a little bit much in terms of the like physics of, it's a big card, and her would it fit, or would we kind of see it? But okay, right. If the Baroness can fit her Black Baroness costume and the rifle in the case, sure. But the fact that this blue card appears in physical reality in this comic for the first time on page 16. Like, yes, I know we saw it on pages 2 and 5 on a computer screen, but the first time I read this, I did not think of it as like a physical object. I thought of it as like,
that could have just been an icon.
Yeah, it's like star, pick, select, check mark, Baroness, Destro. Although they're not G.I. Joe, they're Cobra, right? Shouldn't that be a Cobra symbol? So the fact that it's like Pavlov's gun, right? If you put a gun in Act 1, it has to go off in Act 2. And if you have a gun show up on at the beginning of Act 3, and we've never seen it before, you can't have the gun. I think that's how it works. And just to like hit this on the head, both times I read this as a PDF and as a physical object, I could not figure out if like Baroness suddenly had the blue card, because she just grabbed a coat. Was it the guy's coat? Did she run back up to the box, or like did she pass the target? Like where and the fact that the way that she's wearing the coat at the top of page 16, I think she's being calm, she's trying to blend in, but it's like she's sort of disguising herself. She's like covering herself up. Like, I don't know what are in those pockets.
I wonder. There's something in this that confuses me, which is that a couple of pages onwards, Destro on his phone sees the dead guy on the floor, and he seems surprised to see the dead guy on the floor, as if he didn't kill that guy. He's been sent a message showing that he has been killed by somebody else. So I'm wondering, is it that Baroness killed him, then took his coat off screen, This all happens off panel,
Right.
and that's how she then knows that the target doesn't have the intel. He doesn't have it on him, which must mean that it's his date that has the intel. So there's an oddity that happened before, which is that when she sees his date in the box, she just leaves her alone and goes off to after the main target. Whereas here, she encounters her, finds the intel, and then kills her. Why did she leave her before in the box? Why didn't she take the intel then? The gap is that in between now and then, she's established that the target didn't have the intel because she killed him, checked his body, took his coat.
That's totally fascinating. And that just makes me wonder, back on page 11, what happens after these final two panels? What do Shalvey and Jones want us to think is happening after these two panels? Because I assumed Destro kills the target and gets away. But if it's more complicated than that, like Destro doesn't kill the target, but does get the... I think we're supposed to think, when we're on page 11, that Destro either kills the target and takes the blue card, or, let's say, hits the target unconscious and takes the blue card. But there's supposed to be a surprise a couple pages later, because at the end of the book, he gets to a warehouse and he's upset and he seemingly doesn't have the blue card. So he didn't get it from the target back at the opera house.
And I kind of assumed that you've got Destro leveling his pistol at the target, and then the page turn has Baroness kicking Destro in the face. So my assumption was that is one immediately follows the other, that she interrupts Destro about to shoot this guy by kicking him in the face because she wants to have the credit for the kill. So interesting that maybe we came to different conclusions on that one. But yeah, I assumed kick.
I have an observation and I have an observation and a suggestion. Folks, if you draw or write, or you think about comics like we do, or you make comics and want to get better, if you have found this issue confusing, here's a little exercise. What if the assignment is to add the blue card between 3 and 10 times? No, I'm serious. Mark is smiling. I'm not saying this as a snide. I'm not trying to be a jerk. As a physical prop that I think
I was filling in the gap. I thought you were going to say, what if the assignment was to add the physicals card in between a pretty lady's breasts?
No,
it was like, that's a very strange mission,
no.
Tim. Please continue.
Like as a PDF or a digital file on your comic, or like with some whiteouts and like a blue pen on your physical comic, like actually add it as a thing on the artwork as it exists. So like, do we see it when the Baroness sees the target through her sniper scope and the target is like, I think checking his watch, can't tell. Back on after the like splash page of Baroness's sexy costume. Like, what if he's holding it? Now it's going to be too small because it's going to be like 2 millimeters by 1 millimeter on the actual printed page. But like, let's say there was a second panel or we were closer and you could really tell what it is. It's like, can we cement it there? And then, go a page or two later, like when he's running, at the bottom of 11, at the bottom of 11, when he's taken aback and there's a gun in his face, what if it's in his hand? What if he's holding it right then? Right? Like, I don't know what withholding it from the reader so much gets the story. It's a detriment rather than a benefit, and it puts too much on the like reveal when Baroness has it between the lady's cleavage, and it just goes back to this question that Mark and I have: is she putting it there or taking it there? I think she's taking it because then she kills the lady. And let's talk about this next page, Mark, where she kills the lady. This is page 17, and it's 4 panels. 4 equally sized, quote, widescreen panels. Each one is a quarter of the page all the way across. And the crowd is rushing by, and the, quote, camera is looking down at the Baroness and the date and the crowd, and the camera pulls back and pulls back and pulls back. And particularly in the second and third panels, the crowd dissipates and spreads out. But a couple observations, right? So the page goes from kind of like black and murky, purple red to red. And I think that's the carpet, but that's also subjective. That's meant to be violence and horror and blood, and that a thing is happening. A thing has just happened. But I think 2 things happened. I think the storytellers here wanted to tell this indirectly. And also, I think someone at Skybound or Hasbro said, you have to show this more indirectly. It's too violent that she like actually slits her throat, because it's quite unclear that she actually slits her throat. You have to really zoom in or put your eyeball close to this comic. And I sort of get it from context clues. Like there's a tiny on the page, physically it's big, but on the actual page on the bottom panel, there is a pool of blood underneath the date, and the date is now prone on her back. But also in the final panel, I can't tell if the crowd that's dissipating is still running or not. Like, did they stop and they're shocked? Because I thought in the first 2 panels, they're running and there's a cacophony, like, I have to get out, fire, get out, shark, right? And then of course, Mark, there's sort of the overall thing about this page, which is, why is the drawing so sketchy? Why does this one page read as unfinished compared to every other page, which feels finished? And it's either because they ran out of time, or because it's the violent moment and it's like the ink sort of disassociates. But I found this page wholly unclear. Mark?
Yeah, when I first saw this page, I wondered, because I read it as a preview PDF, I wondered whether it was like a holding page that hadn't been quite finished yet, because it was so sketchy. And on that first panel, Baroness is drawn somewhat clear. The target's wife is drawn very clear. The background is very sort of blurry, sketchy kind of figures. A lot of sketchy black lines and kind of dabs of purple. And then as you move through the page, it gets even less clear and blurry and very sort of, would you say, impressionistic, sort of just the feel of a bit of chaos. As you say, I think sort of trying to lessen perhaps the horror of the moment of Baroness slitting this lady's throat, that I think we are meant to interpret as the thing that has happened here. And that final panel, I'm not too sure if she's being cradled by the Baroness with her arm to her throat, or whether that's a pool of blood. Not entirely clear, and I'm not sure if it necessarily matters that much, but it's a very brutal moment, and sort of not necessarily what you would think of in terms of the typical take from Baroness as a character, in terms of that such a nasty moment, I guess, of someone's throat being slit, and not necessarily for any particularly good or clear reason at this point in time that we can necessarily ascertain. That if it's just the target's wife, if she's taken the intel from her already, with that blue card envelope, whatever it is, why have such a sort of this violent moment then? Yeah, a little bit of a strange one, I think.
Yeah, I think that's all well said. And I was also confused because it starts to feel like the Baroness is cradling her. Like sometimes in a movie, someone murders someone else and they sort of like shush them and try and sort of calm them down as it's happening. Maybe we see this more in horror films, like, shh. Like, it'll only take a minute. It won't hurt. Goodbye. And then like the gun or the slit or the needle. But there are too many elements in this comic to not have dialogue. And I think about the original, and we've still got 2 pages or 3 pages. Oh man. I think about the original silent interlude. And there are a lot of characters: Cobra Commander, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, 3 Red Ninjas in particular, and various, and Destro, and various Cobra soldiers. And on top of that, you've got that chess set, right? Which is like really particular for 2 or 3 panels. And it's like, I don't know who these people are, but like, you just immediately get it because Hama boils down his pictures to very clear choreography and quote camera angles and like universal concepts, right? If there's a chess set of real people and some of them are off the board, we think of that figure of speech, right? I'm going to take the player off the board. And then Destro like looks at the Baroness chess piece, right? And she's not in the issue. And maybe if that comic were published now, I'd be like, this is confusing. Why is there 3 panels spent on a chess set? But like, no, at the time, that was remarkably efficient and affecting. And even though Destro is like inscrutable, like, I don't know how he feels. He just looks at the monitor. It's like 0% chance of positive insertion, right? He just like looks. I can't remember. I don't think he has his finger to his chin. He just looks at the chess piece. Right, Cobra Commander is like surprised when Storm Shadow slashes the sword down on page, I think it's 2. But like this issue with the Baroness, you know, we have close-ups, so there is room for character acting, and yet now that I'll save the rest of that sentence for the final page. So page 18, which I've already talked about at the beginning. So Mark, your turn.
Yeah, so page 18 is kind of like an abandoned warehouse or factory of some sort. Destro is there in the dark on his own with sort of light shining through.
Still wearing his
you get
tux,
the idea.
So it's the same.
Still
evening.
wearing a suit, tux, yeah. And it puts you in mind of kind of like those tropes that maybe a gang will kind of do a bank job, and then they've got a kind of a safe house that they've agreed to kind of reconvene at, and after the mission, if they get split, and then they can look at their haul. So it's not entirely clear why Destro is at this particular place. Initially, I was thinking, you know, he's come here to maybe meet back with the Baroness. It's not. I don't know that there's necessarily a conclusion that we can reach as to why he is there. He's looking at his phone. On the phone is a picture of the targets lying there dead. He squeezes the phone and it shatters. So I guess, you know, the interpretation is that he's receiving that as an image that someone has sent him, maybe the Baroness, maybe Cobra Commander, showing that the body, showing that the guy has been killed and is dead, and he's surprised by it and then infuriated that it wasn't him that took him out, or perhaps he's looking at a photo that he took of the dead body and is annoyed
that he only did half the mission. He killed the guy, but didn't.
He only did half the mission. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I say one thing? The background in the photo on Destro's phone is green floor tile, and I like that detail, and I like the green as a contrast to the red on the rest of the page. But I wish I knew for certain that green tile was definitely the same green tile we saw back at the Opera House. And I don't know for certain. We didn't see tile. I guess we saw some sort of green flooring like before the fight. And if you're thinking, well, Tim, it doesn't matter, the guy's dead.
With the different pattern, a different pattern was on the flooring in that particular fight that Destro and Baroness.
So if listeners, you're thinking, well, you know, Tim, he's dead. That's what matters here. Why does the like specificity of the floor or the continuity of which floor? Why does that matter? Well, one, Mark just said it. It's not the pattern we saw at the Opera House. So it starts to make us think that the Baroness took the target somewhere else to kill him, or after she killed him, she took the body somewhere else. And 2, as a comparison back to Silent Interlude again, you know, Hama has those 2 very specific doorways, right? One is right up the stairs from the little jail cell with the plug. And then the next one is up another flight of stairs. And Hama very specifically drew those 2 doorways with different shapes so that you could track where the story is progressing as they go like down to the prison cell and then back up later. Right? Snake Eyes throws the grenade at the Red Ninjas. And it would be really easy to just draw the same doorway for both of them and have the audience not quite sure at which point in the comic we're at which door. Because it's like, well, Snake Eyes is generally getting away. Well, Snake Eyes has to go through these three ninjas to get further. It doesn't matter if he's on the first floor, the second floor, whatever. But it does matter.
Yeah, I mean, and the proof of the pudding is that we don't know necessarily who killed this guy and where it happened. And we're, comic literate people. So I think there's something here that is missing that is sort of giving us clarity as to really what the plot of this particular story is. So then Destro finds this paper heart with some coordinates on it that we've spoken about already. And then we flip to the second to last page.
Page 19.
The Baroness is on a balcony. She's being served some wine into a glass. She's got a view of the Eiffel Tower.
Raptor is flying around trying to kill her parents. No, I'm sorry. That's
Parents,
folks,
yeah.
if you're not reading the Energon universe, just disregard that joke. Please continue with this comic bookmark.
And then we see Destro's hand enter the scene. He's holding the coordinates. So we're, I guess, given to, interpret that he's used those coordinates on that paper heart to track down where the Baroness is. She sees him over her shoulder. Then she reaches down into her cleavage, and there is a tiny little bit of blue paper with a tiny, tiny, tiny white star on it, which she seems to be taking out, which
then metamorphosizes into a white card, which she hands him.
Yep.
And it's apparently the bill for dinner.
The bill for dinner. And with my bit of internet sleuthing, sort of clarified that the bill says Plaza Athene. And if you do a search for that, then you can find some reference of exactly where the Baroness is on that balcony. So the location where she is having her dinner is the Plaza Athene. And
real thing in the real world.
A real thing in the real world.
And that's fun. We're not saying that Jöelle Jones using this as a reference photo is bad. I think it's great.
And it also clarifies that the bill that she is handing Destro is for the bill of the place that she is currently eating at, rather than or drinking at, rather than where in between panels 1 and 3 the table has been cleared. Yes, so initially I was wondering, is she giving him the intel that they were looking for, and the intel was a bill? I don't think it's that, because it's the place they are actually at now. I think the joke is that she's saying that you should pay the bill because I won and you came second place. But yeah, that we get this tiny flash, this tiny glimpse of that blue card.
Wait, before you do that, just describe the last two panels.
Oh, sorry, and the last two panels are them, I guess, leaning in for a kiss. So all is forgiven.
Okay, so go back to what you were saying about panel 3 with this tiny bit of blue.
Yeah, so she's sort of reaching down into her top. She's taking out this tiny bit of blue paper with the white star on it. And then the next panel is her holding this bill. So any logical leap would be that this is the one and the same
and that
thing.
The first one is a coloring mistake. That what she pulls out of her cleavage shouldn't be blue.
Or that she's turned it over or taken it out.
Right.
If it's an envelope, maybe she's opened the blue envelope, or maybe it's blue on the other side and she's turning it over. But it's a confusing moment, and we never find out what. If it's not the bill, we don't find out what this blue thing is.
Folks, here's another mental exercise or actual exercise. If you are interested in how comics work and you want to spend some time making them or thinking about them, write out as a script everything that happens on this page and include it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 panels. Like retroactively script this page. Remember, no dialogue. So you're describing all of the props and the the feelings and the story beats, right? Like, Destro realizes, right? Or Baroness and Destro forgive each other, right? Write that all out and then hand that to someone who has never seen this comic and ask them to draw it all in one page. And I bet they'll have a really hard time because, as Mark was alluding to, in panel 3, Destro pulls what we think is the blue card. It is blue, but it is the smallest possible amount of geography on this page that you could have in a comic book and still be legible. It is so tiny. And it is the opposite of the very clear, a couple pages earlier, Baroness holding a blue card in someone's cleavage, right? That was clear. I didn't know if she was putting it there or taking it out, but I knew what I was looking at. And here, Mark has the benefit of zooming in on this PDF. Folks, I'm holding the comic book, and I guess I'll put it up to my camera. The amount of blue, let me get it without glare. The amount of blue that you see in panel 3 is like 1/20th of my pinky fingernail. And so if you read this digitally where you can zoom in, or you're looking at this right now as Mark is doing it, and you're like, well, yeah. Folks, I got to tell you, you can't tell. You can't see it. It's too small. And the first time I read this as a PDF, I did not even see it. I just thought, oh, she's like reaching for her purse and she's handing him like a slip, like a bill, I guess. I get it from the context. Like, I've seen this joke where it's like, you have to pay because I won the bet. Or as Mark said, you have to pay because you lost. But where did the bill come from? Because as Mark says, the table's been cleared. And like, restaurants bring you bills on like a little like leather sort of like folding clipboardy thing. But there's nothing on the table except for one glass of champagne. And then on top of it, I find this is like the icing on that unsatisfying cake that I was metaphorizing earlier. The third to last panel of the comic is the bill. And it's like kind of big enough, but the actual writing on it has been like sort of erased, like sort of like Jöelle Jones doesn't want us to know like actually how much it is. Like when you like in a comic book, you don't actually want to. Oh, you don't actually want to know.
It's 706.84.
Okay, right. Hold that thought. In a comic book, like we go to like Bruce Wayne's parents' tombstone, or like Uncle Ben's tombstone, or anyone's tombstone in like contemporary comics, and you actually don't want to know what year they died because then that dates that comic book, right? So they like put it in shadow, or they like kind of like have it like sketched out and you kind of can't see it, or like someone's head is in front of it. It's like, oh, like this isn't like Captain America. Captain America definitely went into the ice in 1940 or 1941 or whatever, 1944. This feels like I'm not supposed to see what's on this tab. And like, yes, when Mark zooms in, I see 706.84, but it's like,
I don't think you can see this with the human eye in any other form other than a close zoom up on the.
You can, but you have
image.
to work at it. And the like writing otherwise, and the like vertical lines on this bill are like broken up as if it's sort of sketchy. And I just want to go. I feel like I have to repeat this. It's not clear is the bill the same thing as the intelligence, the blue card, or are they separate things? Because if it's the same, that's a really interesting joke that isn't explained. And if they're different, it's like, where did she just she just like for a moment kind of like peeked the blue intelligence card out of her cleavage and then was like, oh, never mind about that. Pay my bill. Okay. So page 20.
So the next page. We're back with Cobra Commander just as we started. He's on his monitor. He's looking at Baroness and Destro about to smooch, and then sort of looking again at sort of some of his Cobra operatives on the other monitors, including that same image of the target lying on the floor that had someone, probably the Baroness or Destro, has killed. And then we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with various Cobra operatives, which I now realize means that he's got a Cobra leaderboard. The Baroness is number 1 on that leaderboard. Destro is number 2, Zartan 3, Copperhead 4, and the Crimson Twins, Tomax and Zaymot, in position number 5, which is why I guess you had that competition between Destro and the Baroness trying to make it to the top of Cobra Commander's leaderboard. We then see a shot of Cobra Commander and a close-up of his mask, with once again the Baroness being reflected in the mirror of his mask.
Okay. So on this final page, I think it's fun, but you can't do it too much when in stories, the view that the viewer or reader sees of something happening is the same view that like the villain sees from some like video camera or security that we didn't know existed and that actually could not exist. So this bit of artwork that Cobra Commander sees on a screen of Destro and Baroness about to kiss is a copy and paste from the previous page. I'm okay in theory with this copy and paste. Artists are allowed to reuse artwork. It's not my favorite, but that's fine. And sometimes it works well. But what this means is that there's a security camera on this balcony of this hotel. And like, I get it. Cobra is worldwide and cameras can be really small now. And like, certainly in the animated series, like Cobra has sort of cameras everywhere and Cobra Commander can just call Joe HQ and it's like on the Enterprise, their giant monitors are also cameras. They can just talk to each other like video phones. And certainly in Larry Hama's G.I. Joe, the brainwave scanner can like put on a TV screen like what your fantasies and nightmares are. So yeah, it's not too much of a stretch. And I do like the idea that Cobra Commander is keeping tabs on this mission. But I turn the page and I think, it's like, couldn't that have been drawn like a little further away and like higher up? Like there's a camera up on the roof or something. So then we get to the 1, 2, sort of the middle. I guess it's a tier. It's a single panel. I guess technically the third panel on this final page is that leaderboard of 5 Cobra. It's really 6 Cobra agents because the twins are 2 people, but the numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I find this confusing for like 17 reasons. 1, the font is a like US military font. It's like the stencil font that would be on like a metal drum at an army base. And it would say like gasoline, US Army. Like, couldn't this be like a digital font? And couldn't it be red? Like, couldn't this be sort of a Cobra motif? And I know that's such a small thing, but you know, it's all the details that add up. It's like, it's not just the chocolate cake, it's the sprinkles. And like, it's my birthday and I really want to enjoy this cake. And like, oh wait, you got me like Transformers paper plates and paper napkins? Well, now my birthday cake tastes even better because I love Transformers. Okay. So, and then like those colors are yellow, like let's have them red. But okay. But then the actual sort of story point of why on the final page of this overly complicated and utterly unclear story, do the writer and artist introduce 4 other characters as if they're like a going concern in this story, and they were not in the story and there is no additional story happening. And I find this like in a stumbling way really charming as a comparison to the final page of the original Silent Interlude, which ends with this weird cliffhangery reveal that no one knew what it meant at the time, including the guy who wrote it and drew it, that the main good guy and the main bad guy from G.I. Joe issue 21 have the same arm tattoo, but it's not something that we know what it is. It's not like the U.S. Marine Corps tattoo. Like, oh, they're both in the Marines together. It's like, it's something, like a bunch of red lines. But Hama had the advantage of writing the next month and the month after that of that comic. And Shalvey and Jones aren't coming back to this. And so I don't need like this complication. Like, wait, it wasn't just the Baroness and Destro? Like were Zartan and Copperhead and the twins also on this mission and they dropped out early, or they didn't get very far, so it's not worth showing how they did in these 20 pages. Like, this comic needs so much more, the whole 20 issues needs so much more real estate to clearly show what does happen and is important. It cannot spend even a third of a page at the end on characters that aren't in the story and don't help the story. And then on a meta level, when I got to this, I thought, wait, is this like an ad for the rest of Silent Missions? Like a meta ad? It's like, oh, well, the first one's Baroness, week 1. And then like, well, Copperhead, that's Howard Porter. I think that's week 4. And like, oh, Zartan, Pat Olaf and Tom DeFalco. I think that's week 3. It's like, wait, is there a Destro one? Where they're not the twins. And it's like, don't ask me a question that takes me out of the story. Keep me in the story, right? Like, if this is a competition between the Baroness and Destro, just have Baroness and Destro be on this final page. And then, like, the final 2 panels, I don't know what the acting, I don't know how Cobra Commander is or feels in these final 2 panels. And there's basically no difference between them. In the second to last panel, he's, I think, standing. It doesn't feel like he's sitting anymore. And his like one shoulder is a little higher than the other. It sort of feels like his hands are behind his back and he's sort of looking down. Like
it's crossing his arms. It's hidden in the blacks, but
okay.
He's got his crossed arms in front of him. Okay. So, all right. Good idea. Inked and colored too dark, printed too dark. So I lost a bit of acting in the final. But he's thinking, and I don't know if he's like smiling under his mask or like disappointed or if he's like grimly satisfied. And then what is the difference between the first and the second of these 2 final panels? Well, in one of them, we see Cobra Commander looking down at, I guess, all this computer stuff and the Baroness. And in the second one, it's a close-up, and we see that same Baroness, like leaderboard, profile, player select, not a passport photo, reflected in his mask. And in comics and in film, if you have a close-up of a character, you are adding import to them. You're emphasizing how they feel. And if you can see their face, you're emphasizing that they're not just sad, but really sad, or not just thoughtful, but really thoughtful. If they're wearing a mask like this, they're inscrutable, and we don't know. And I have sympathy for anyone drawing G.I. Joe now, because you can't use the old blue hooded mask, right? Lorenzo D. Bonaventura totally ruined that for everyone, and Hasbro overreacted. And I'm sorry, right? Hasbro will only let you draw a silver battle mask Cobra Commander unless you're Chris Mooneyham and you design a slight tweak on the blue thing. But like, I go back to what Larry Hama said about issue 1 of G.I. Joe. Like, the question is, why did you introduce the Baroness? He's like, because all the Cobra characters had masks, and it's hard to have characters act if you can't see what their facial expressions are. So I have a lot of sympathy if you're only allowed to draw silver mask Cobra Commander and we don't know what his face is. But in terms of like the emotional sort of up or down, I don't know what the difference is supposed to be from this second to last panel to this last panel. And therefore the last panel is flat because it's not an up or a down in intensity from the previous one. And like, if this was a film, there could be like a sting, you know, some like synthesizer or like a rumble, like, like, and you sort of imagine he's like, yes, Baroness, or like, Baroness. But I just see a drawing of him and he's bigger, and like, well, she is reflected. I don't know why she wasn't reflected in the second to last panel. And it's a sort of an echo of the page 2, bottom right hand corner, sort of closing it out as we almost started the comic. You've got a close up of Cobra Commander with the Baroness reflected, and yeah, I definitely can't read into what's happening there. But have a look at the Cobra Commander here on page number 2 and the design of his helmet. He's got that I think it's cartoon design of the white stripe down his helmet. Final page of the book, he's wearing a different helmet. He's got this sort of interesting angular designed helmet without a stripe on it now on this page. I guess, again, just not consistency, paying attention to all of those details. I like you, saw this final page and I was convinced to myself, this is a framing device. We're going to see this in every single book across the Silent Missions.
And when you said that to me, I said, oh no.
But I was convinced. I was like, why else would you put it there? You've got 5 characters here, numbered 1 through 5. You've got 5 issues in the Silent Month, spelling out Cobra 5. And I could see Copperhead, who's a very specific character. I could see Zartan, who I knew was going to be in there. And I knew that we had the Crimson Guard as well. I wasn't sure about Destro, but I thought, why else would you have that? This is the framing device. Each issue is going to start and finish with Cobra Commander setting a mission and one of these Cobra agents executing on that mission. And I was entirely wrong. That isn't what happens at all. And that wasn't the reason for this being.
I think I'm going to say 3 final things. One, here's one last thought exercise, and this is really fast. Imagine if this comic didn't have pages 1 or 2 or 5 or 20. Imagine if instead of only 15 pages for all the choreography of the Baroness, the Target, the Opera, the Date, Destro, only 15 pages for that, and 5 pages of Cobra Commander, which doesn't add much, right? Because if Cobra Commander wasn't in it, if he wasn't selecting and like betting on one or the other agent, it would still be clear that the Baroness and Destro are competing. So why is Cobra Commander necessary? Well, he's not.
Yeah. They could have shortcutted it entirely with like just a 1 panel, the Target, as you say, like some just a flashback to a photo taken of him.
Or let me just slightly rewrite this final page, right? Take out pages like 1 and 2 and 5 or whatever it was. Cobra Commander could be on the final page. Just have Baroness on the second to last page. Baroness hands Destro the blue card, and on the last page, instead of Cobra Commander looking at his leaderboard, he gets the bill. That's a punchline. Now, that doesn't, I don't know if that works. It might not be clear. That might not be the right tone, but like that. Okay. So that's one. My other thought is on Facebook, in the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero comic collectors group, someone started a discussion a few days ago and said, some of these silent issues would be better with dialogue. And then several people say that the Gabriel Hardman one is good. And then someone says, I'm still not really sure what was going on in the Baroness issue. And the original poster says, exactly. And then a third person says, I had to look up online the plot of the Baroness issue to understand why Baroness and Destro were fighting each other. It was not at all clear that the little blue envelope with the star was intel they had both been assigned to retrieve as a competition. Meanwhile, over in a different post in this same Facebook group, G.I. Joe, or Real American Hero comic collectors, a different person, this was back when the comic came out, this was April 9th, says, last week's Silent Mission featuring the Baroness was a head scratcher and really highlighted what I dislike about the silent issues. This week's issue featuring a Crimson Guard does a complete 180 for me, right? And then there are several different people who say, someone says, I'm glad I wasn't the only one completely confused by the Baroness issue. Someone says, I had to give it a second read before it all started to fall into place, and I'm probably still missing some of it. And I could go on. There's several comments like this. And this is a very small and unscientific sampling, but I have not seen any Facebook comments where someone said, I understood the Baroness issue. And between my first and second reactions, Mark's first and second reactions, and 7 people on Facebook who I just quoted, I'm sorry to say this issue is sloppy and completely unsuccessful. And I'm heartbroken to say that because Skybound has done such a good job with G.I. Joe, Energon Universe, and A Real American Hero, and the reprints, and variant covers, and getting people excited. And Jones and Shalvey are really talented folks, and the editors at Skybound are really talented. And someone needed to stop this much earlier and have half of it redone. And so as like just a G.I. Joe fan reading a comic that I don't understand, that's a bummer. But as someone, and as a store owner, like this was the first one that I had to sell, and then there were 4 more coming. I thought, oh no. And then as sort of a general like G.I. Joe fan who feels like an ambassador, I do a podcast, I try and talk about G.I. Joe in positive ways. Like this is not a strong example of, clear entertainment. This is completely unclear and therefore unsatisfying. And it's a real disappointment.
Yeah, all fair. I think, Tim. I don't know if I'd be quite as negative as that, but certainly I think coming away from a story being so confused by it and sort of having these question marks that despite the number of times you might read it and reread it, you still don't quite understand what is meant to be happening in it. And yeah, if your takeaway is from a Silent Mission story, I wish it had dialogue or captions, then something has gone relatively significantly wrong with that premise and that experiment of the silent issue. I think they can be hit and miss, and I think some are stronger than others, and telling a silent story and justifying the fact that it is a silent story can be tricky. I think it looks nice. I think just the element of some very specific elements of the clarity of the story could have made it that much clearer, and as a result, much more enjoyable and a successful end product. The package of the comic itself, beyond that, is pretty nice, isn't it? I like what they're doing with the letter at the end, which I think is a standard across all of the Silent Month, covering each of the issues. And I love that we get to see a bit of a sketchbook and a behind the scenes. It sort of makes it feel like a much sort of richer value adding product. But I don't know if value adding, but gives a bit of weight to it, makes it feel a bit more premium, I think, having all of these extra things in the package. So while this issue is sort of overall a bit of a noble failure, some comics are winners, some less so, but I think we both enjoyed aspects of this, even despite all of that. And given the caliber of the creators, would still welcome a return for Declan Shalvey writing or drawing something, and similarly seeing some further art from Jöelle Jones. So I think that is us done with Silent Missions, Baroness. If you want to find out a little bit more about behind the scenes from Declan Shalvey, the writer, some of his background with G.I. Joe, and how he got involved with the creation of this particular story, as at the time of recording, he had seen very little of the final product. So one question mark for me in my back of my mind is like, what was it there in the script versus what was on the final illustrated page? Because after all, we only get to see the end result. We don't get to see the translation of a script. So that's a question mark for me, is to kind of how much was there in the script that possibly didn't come through, or if at all. So there we go. That's Silent Missions, Baroness, all done and dusted. If you are new to Talking Joe, you can find us over at talkingjoe.co.uk. That's the website that points you to all of the places that we can be found, including our Patreon group. Big thanks to Richard, Sam, Christopher, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, D, Shane, V2. This one has, found a whole new change of wardrobe in a teeny tiny violin case. Infinite Entertainment, Gary V, Coldroff B, Squishy, Matt, and Edge B. They are getting early access to episodes like this one, as well as some exclusive content. Tim, where can you be found when you are not talking to me about G.I. Joe?
I have a YouTube page with some creative partners. That's at Atomic Abe. I have a comic book store. That's a physical place outside of Boston, Hub Comics. And I have a blog where I write about G.I. Joe, a realamericanbook.com.
Very good. And you've got a comic book of your own coming out monthly as we speak. The Center Holds.
Yes, roughly monthly, a 4-issue miniseries from Boom, written by Larry Hama, drawn by Mark Bright. I'm the editor, and it's called The Center Holds.
Issue 3 is out in May.
Right.
And issue 4 is out in June.
Depending on when you listen to or watch this episode, issue 3 is already out, and you missed it. And what's taking you so long, folks?
Very good. If you feel like you've missed it all by this point, then there will be a trade on the way at some point as well. So no excuse not to catch the centre holds. So I think that is us done. Tim, any final thoughts before we go?
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Luminary, as always. Till next time. Laters.